Internet, what's up? Okay, so I just made the other video talking about me being a nerd and being excited about hips in disc golf. Um, so go check out Yanni's video on hips. Go check out the disc zone. I think it was a disc zone. The disc zone guy's whip video. Um, Excellent things to level up your understanding of mechanics. So we talked about hips. Now we're going to talk specifically about whips. Hips and Whips, new channel name. Um, so if you haven't actually played with a real physical whip, you totally should. I have one. I've done a little bit of whip work. It's dark and rainy outside. If it was not rainy all day today, I would have gone out and filmed some whip stuff for y'all. So I will do that at my earliest convenience in the future. But I can talk a little bit about whip mechanics in hopes that will help you understand how to make your arm into a whip. Okay, so this is a rope. If I hold it up like this and then I drop it, I don't actually remember physics class, but acceleration due to gravity is, I want to say 9.8 meters squared. It might be 9.2, 9 point something meters squared. You don't have to know the math. When you drop a thing, that thing will fall and it will accelerate as it does so until it hits terminal velocity, which is not going to happen in this amount of space. So when this thing goes, you would expect it. Need a ball. There's all sorts of things in this room, and none of them are balls because I moved all the balls upstairs. Let's drop a disc. Just need something affected by gravity. This works. So you would expect the tip of the rope and the disc to fall at the same time. And I don't remember the experiment. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But the cool thing is the tip of the rope ends up, especially if you give it some width like this, it ends up moving faster than acceleration due to gravity would show you that it would. That is due to an effect called conservation of momentum. So, which is literally whip mechanics. So, that's what we use when someone has this magic undefinable timing thing. They're getting their kinematic sequence dialed into a point where momentum from their bigger parts goes to their smaller parts and makes them speed up. So that's the physics hack that is in the guy's graph of why a good player can throw faster without expending more effort in a linear fashion. That's kind of dense linguistically. If you don't follow that, that's okay. I need to find a better way to explain it. But conservation of momentum, this experiment works a little better in terms of understanding it. If you think of this as a chain, the mechanics would be exactly the same. So when I drop this side, each link on this side starts generating momentum going down. It starts gaining speed going down. The reason this end speeds up, you can think about it in shapes, right? The rope isn't falling straight down. This end of the rope, if I drop it here, like maybe it doesn't, it still does it. Because the fluffy tip is making an arc at the bottom and doing this, it's moving at the speed we would expect down, but then it also deflects sideways. Part of what's going on there and part of why the rope speeds up is because of conservation momentum. So the links on this side have energy going down, but think about the links in the middle. Like this spot right here, it goes down and then it stops going down. So because the rope is holding it taut. So when a given link in the chain, if you will, can't go down anymore, its momentum doesn't just magically go away. It doesn't go back up the rope. It doesn't turn into heat. It doesn't turn into anything else. It keeps going down because of conservation of momentum. Momentum has to be conserved, so it goes down. So as the rope is falling and the momentum in each given link is being arrested, it's pushed towards the tip of the whip. So that's conservation of momentum. It's still kind of a leap to get to how does that matter for us. But whips additionally are bigger at the base, and then they taper down to a very tiny little popper at the end. So the mass from a large section of a whip, the momentum rather, because the mass is larger, momentum is also larger. If you take a large amount of momentum and press it into a smaller part of a whip, then the speed has to increase as a result of that. So me as a whip, I also have big parts moving to smaller parts, moving to smaller parts, moving to smallest part. So if I can get that effect to work in my body, conservation momentum is going to say that my hand is going to be going even faster because it's smaller than my hips and my shoulders and my arm. So we're already built like a whip. We already have hinges, and we're already set up with a taper to take more advantage of this effect. So how do we actually get it to work? I think we need to start understanding how whips actually work at that point. So I'm really not very good at cracking a whip. The classic way to crack a whip is to swing it forward like this and then send a loop out from the side. So you're sending it up and then boom, and it's going to unroll and crack that way. So what you're doing is you're making a big wave of force and a little wave of force, and you're making those two things, those two waves stack on top of each other. So wave physics gets real fun real fast. But basically you have a wave that's like a sine wave, like it's got a curve like this. And if you stack another one on top of that, they add, and your amplitude of the peak of the wave gets higher because you've stacked two waves. So you have one wave and then another wave. That way of cracking a whip is very hard. An easier way to crack a whip is to spin it overhead. So here you can think about this as a wave. It's an oscillation. It's a sine wave, right? So what I'm going to do to crack a whip this way, and again, I'll demo this outside so it will look slightly less silly. Not a lot, but slightly. What you're going to do is you're going to take this circle, you're going to change directions, cut across the center of the circle, and then change directions again. So I have one wave going this way, and I'm going to cut that circle in half and switch. So you can think about it like you're drawing the S curve of a yin-yang symbol above your head, boom, and then your crack happens over there. So I don't think this is actually long enough or tapered enough to crack, but I can show you the idea. So I'm here, and I go, that almost cracked, not quite, but you see how it speeds up there? It's the same effect as this, whap. But this is only one wave. So here's my first wave, and then my second wave, bam, makes the whip go from a straight line to having a curl in it, boom, that then whips the tip and makes a sonic boom if you have a popper and you're good enough at it. So, who cares? You can crack a whip, cool. What's happening there is stacking force waves on top of each other. So how the heck do I do that with my body? I have various things in my body that can create force waves. So the way I look at it now, after 3 years of studying this stuff, is one force wave is, boom, hip snap. Wave created. Cool. Good to go. Another wave is X factor, using your core to drive your shoulders forward. So if you bolt my hips to a wall, I can still throw just with my core without using my hips at all. So that's another way to generate force, is your core turning your shoulders. The fifth way is you can take your shoulder from protracted to retracted. You can add force to a whip by moving your shoulder joint forward and backward. Not one that we think about a lot, but at a high level, it's definitely a thing. You see players here where they're protracted, and then you see players here where they're retracted. So it's definitely moving. So 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, horizontal upper arm abduction. 5, an elbow hinge, done with a tricep or passively. Both are things. Wrist, if you want to use your wrist, you can use your wrist. And then most importantly, the magic finger pivot. This matters so much. If you made a contraption that made you hold a disc where you could only release it without a finger pivot, oh man, would we all suck at disc golf using that. So finger pivot is really the last force multiplier, and it's really the biggest one. The CEO of techdisc was recently interviewed. I forget by who. I feel like Brian Earhart was there. I'm not sure. CEO of techdisc said, looking at stats of techdisc thingies while it's in your hand, top players, the last 15 to 25 milliseconds the tech disc is in their hand, it accelerates the most. The rip out, the finger pivot before rip out, is the most important force multiplier in getting magical, effortless disc golf whip mechanic magic to work. According to science, tech disc. We're going to get access to those stats shortly, I believe is the thing. That is going to be really cool. So we're stacking force waves. With a whip, you only really need 2 of them to get it to crack. And we get 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half, 5. So we're trying to line up 5 waves. Try to crack a whip with 2. It's a pain. It won't work your first time. It won't work your first couple hundred times probably. So lining up 2 is a giant pain and very hard to do. We get the opportunity to line up 5. Most people probably line up like 3 or 4, and because most people aren't really using wrist at a high level. So that's already, we're down to 4. I mean, I guess most people are using those 4. So you're trying to line up 4 force waves. That's hard. That's really hard. It starts to make sense why so many people can't do this well. So you're trying to get 4 things to happen within a very narrow millisecond window for it to work. So conceptualizing that, I think, is maybe helpful to cut the frustration in half, so we can chill out, so we can give ourselves time to learn this stuff, because it's really hard. But anyways, what you're doing to make your kinematic sequence work at a basic level is you're creating a force wave in your hips. You're timing your core rotation, driving your shoulder so that it adds to that wave, and then driving your elbow forward so that it adds to that wave, and then having your elbow hinge open and your disc pivot happen in ways that they add to the amplitudes all stacked together of your force waves. If your timing is off at all, it super won't work. If you've ever felt a throw that just didn't work, where you're used to like bam and the disc gets heavy and you feel it there, if your timing's off, like your foot slips or something, you're gonna feel bleh, and you don't get that acceleration, and it feels weird, feels off, like the disc doesn't get heavy. And that's because your force waves didn't line up to where their amplitude stacked. So the number one killer of this kind of timing that we're trying to find, I think, is being too active or being too tense. So if you're trying to throw and you're starting a lawnmower and thinking about pulling in a straight line, your kinematic sequence is not ever possibly going to work, because there's too much tension in your muscles for your joints to flow like a whip, and you're never going to get that crack to happen. So if you're throwing that way, in order to get more speed, you have to put in more muscular effort. Muscular effort caps out at a certain point. Even for very, very, very athletic people, there's a hard limit of, okay, that's the most a human can do. Cool. You're going to be capped out at, I don't know, maybe 70 miles an hour. If you want to go much faster than that, you need to be using physics hacks. So you need to relax, have more fluidity in your muscular skeletal system, and start learning to use mechanics to get a force multiplier that is better than just strength on strength. Okay, so that's a lot of deep theory. In terms of how to actually apply this, I think the best way to start to feel that hip wave of force is the post-to-post drill. So there's two versions of that currently. There's the static version and the dynamic version. The static version maximizes range of motion in your hips. Please do not do that explosively. You will probably tweak your hips. If you want to start doing it with more power, check out the dynamic version of that drill, where you are structuring your hip joint more so that you're not collapsing into your joints and you can still get the same torque to happen as a result of the weight shift, not as a result of driving with your rear leg, which is a much more common movement pattern. So I think those are the best ways to start accessing this kinematic sequence whip stuff. But it's can be a long journey to get it figured out. It took me more than a year to learn how to brace somewhat correctly, and I couldn't do it until I had help from Lee Wentz, was the one who really made it click for me. Fabulous coach. Okay, I'm blabbing. I'm gonna stop. Go check out the Patreon. See you later.